What if one of the most valuable things you could sell is not more information, but fewer decisions? Because right now, people are overwhelmed. Too many tools, too many options, too many tabs, too many opinions, too many things to compare. And when everything feels possible, people stall. They do not choose, they do not buy, they do not move. That does not look like a business opportunity, but it is. Because confusion is expensive, it wastes time, it kills momentum, and it quietly stops people from acting. Which means the person who makes the decision easier can get paid. That is the shift. Most people think value comes from adding more. More features, more advice, more choices, more depth. But a lot of money is made doing the opposite: filtering, narrowing, ranking, recommending, simplifying. In other words, reducing friction. Think about how often people get stuck. Which software should I use? Which camera should I buy? Which service should I choose? Which platform is worth it? Which option is actually best? Most of the time, they're not looking for endless information. They are looking for relief. They want someone to say, "This one, not all 20. That is why this matters. In a world drowning in options, clarity becomes a product. And once you see that, you start noticing it everywhere. A curated tool stack for freelancers. A simple buying guide for new business owners. A short list of the best local vendors in one niche. A decision matrix for choosing platforms. A service that helps small teams choose the right software. A newsletter that filters the noise down to what is actually useful. That is not just content, that is decision compression. And decision compression is valuable. Because people will pay to move faster. They will pay to stop second-guessing. They will pay to feel sure. That is the emotional part most people miss. When people cannot decide, they feel friction, hesitation, doubt, mental fatigue. Sometimes even embarrassment. Because too many choices do not feel empowering. They feel heavy. And the person who removes that heaviness becomes useful immediately. That is why recommendation businesses work. That is why curated directories work. That is why templates work. That is why best of lists work. That is why niche consultants get paid. Not because they know everything, but because they help people stop spinning. Here is where it gets interesting. The best version of this is not broad. It is specific. Not the best business tools, but the best scheduling tools for med spas. Not the best camera gear, but the simplest video setup for solo creators under $500. Not how to choose software, but the exact CRM a local realtor should use based on team size. That is what makes this practical, because the more specific the decision, the more valuable the clarity. And that means this can turn into real offers, a paid guide, a recommendation kit, a niche shortlist, a setup consultation, a curated database, a simple comparison product, something that saves people from doing 10 hours of research. That is the real product, not information. Save decision-making time. And there is a deeper reason this works. When people have too many options, they often do nothing. So if you can help them choose, you are not just organizing information. You are unlocking action that makes your value easier to feel. Because the result is immediate. Less time wasted, less confusion, fewer bad choices, faster movement. That is what people actually buy, not just knowledge. Forward motion. So if you wanted to test this idea, start with one question. Where are people overwhelmed by too many options? Not just curious, stuck. Where are they comparing too much, researching too long, and delaying the next step? Because that is where the opportunity is hiding. Then go narrower. Pick one type of decision for one kind of person, in one situation, and make it easier. Not bigger, not more impressive, clearer. Because the internet keeps rewarding people who add more noise. But the real money often goes to the people who remove it. That is the payoff. People do not always need more choices. Sometimes they need fewer, better ones, and someone who can help them trust the decision. That is where this starts becoming a business. And once you see it, you stop asking, "What can I sell people?" and start asking the better question. What decision is wasting their time? And how can I make it easier? That is where real value begins. So the next time someone says there are too many options, smile. Because that confusion might be somebody else's problem and your opportunity. Subscribe if you want to keep finding the value other people miss.